Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. As you all know, our main focus for this channel is and always will be college football. But today we're going to switch gears just a little bit and break down and predict the 2019 NFL playoffs. And looking at the playoffs, this is the first time in a long time that I have looked at all these teams and not seen a clear-cut favorite for who I think is going to go to the Super Bowl. This is going to be an extremely fun postseason for the NFL. All of these teams have legitimate shots at making Super Bowl 53, and really there's not one clear-cut favorite that I think this team is going to go all the way and just kind of sweep the entire competition. So this is going to be a lot of fun leading up to February 3rd when the Super Bowl is held in Atlanta. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right on in with the wild card round, starting off this Saturday. We'll start with the first game that will be played with the Texans and the Colts in Houston. This is going to be a very intriguing matchup, an AFC South rivalry game. These teams have already met twice this season because they are in the same division. We'll start with the Colts, who will be on the road, clinching the 6th seed in the AFC after defeating the Tennessee Titans in the final week of the season. That was a win-or-go-home game for both the Titans and the Colts. And the Colts have won 9 of their last 10 games. They are arguably the hottest team in the NFL right now. They've done it fairly quietly. I mean, you win 9 of your last 10 games, yet they still had to win their final game just to get into the playoff. And really, this is all credit to Andrew Luck. What a comeback season it's been for him. I think he's thrown for over 4,500 yards, and without him, the Colts wouldn't be here right now. And we saw that. I mean, the Titans were without Marcus Mariota. We saw how much they struggled on the offensive side of the ball. So a lot of credit to Andrew Luck for getting the Colts back into the postseason after a couple of years off there. They beat the Texans in Houston back on December 9th, so it is very possible they could come in here and do that again. However, they lost back at home to the Texans on September 30th early on in the year, and that game going to overtime. Both of those games being very close between the Texans and the Colts. So this is going to be, once again, like I said, a very intriguing matchup. The key for the Colts is going to be, though, can they stop DeAndre Hopkins, who has just been on an absolute tear this past month of the season. He scorched the Colts back when they met in September, 10 receptions for 169 yards, had another touchdown against them back on December 9th. The Texans, a lot of credit to Bill O'Brien for what he's done. They start off 0-3. Everybody's a little bit afraid of what's going to happen. You know, Deshaun Watson went down with injury last year after a pretty brilliant rookie campaign. Would have been better had he not gotten hurt. People feared how he was going to be able to bounce back. They start off 0-3. Things aren't looking good. They rattle off 9 straight games. But who snapped that 9-game winning streak? It was the Colts. Back on December 9th. So great credit for what the Texans have done. I think in the end, though, the Texans are going to get the better of the Colts in this game. You know me. I am a big proponent of home field advantage. I do believe in that. And that's not the only reason the Texans are going to win this game. I think the Colts are just a little bit outmatched. It's going to be fun to watch Deshaun Watson and Andrew Luck go up against each other. And I think in the end, DeAndre Hopkins and that very, very difficult defensive line, Jadeveon Clowney, J.J. Watt for Houston, will get the Texans to win, and that will send them to New England to face off against Tom Brady and the Patriots, who they met back in Week 1. Going on to the second game of Saturday, over here to the NFC, the Cowboys and the Seahawks. A lot of credit to the Cowboys for getting back to the postseason, and Jason Garrett, you know, many people thought he was going to be on the hot seat or was on the hot seat coming into the season, especially after the very poor start for them. However, they won 7 of their last 8 games. That definitely saved his job. And that 7 out of those last 8 games, they beat the Saints in that stretch and held the Saints' prolific offense to just 10 points. And that was really the kind of the tip of the iceberg. That was the, you know, big exclamation point for that key stretch for Dallas and kind of show that they could compete with just about anybody in the National Football League. This is a very different Cowboys team, in my opinion. People always say the Cowboys are going to choke and that they're overrated and that they shouldn't be in the playoff. You know, it's mediocre, but this just feels different to me. I've seen some growth this season in Dak Prescott. I think he has really taken some major steps forward as quarterback for the Cowboys. They obviously have Ezekiel Elliott, the rushing leader in the entire NFL, and then these two teams did meet back in early in the season, just back in Week 3. Cowboys losing that game in Seattle 24-13, but they were without Amari Cooper. And ever since the Cowboys acquired Amari Cooper with that trade from Oakland, their offense has seen a major uptick in production. They've done phenomenal things. Now they have added a star wide receiver in Amari Cooper. I think that's going to be huge in this game, going up against the Seahawks defense and a Seahawks team overall that's been very sporadic to me. They won 6 of the last 7. That included a win at home against the Chiefs. That also included a loss against the lowly 49ers and Nick Mullins at quarterback. So which Seahawks team is going to show up here? I do believe the Cowboys get a huge home win in the playoffs, advance to the second round, the divisional round of the playoffs. That might be enough to save Jason Garrett's job for another year. If he were to lose this game, there's a chance you could see him get fired despite making the playoffs. But I think the Cowboys are a different team this season. I think they get the better of the Seahawks in Dallas. Moving on to Sunday's wild card games. Over here back in the AFC, the Ravens and the Chargers. This is going to be a very interesting game. The lone wild card game, when I was kind of analyzing these games, I just really saw as a toss-up. This is going to be a very, very difficult game to predict, and really one that I could see going either way. You know, the Ravens went into Los Angeles back on December 22nd and beat the Chargers 22-10, and that because the day after the Chiefs lost on the road to Seattle, that prevented the Chargers from potentially getting home field advantage in the playoffs. It prevented the Patriots from potentially getting home field in the playoffs, because that would have been huge had the Chargers won because the Chiefs had lost to Seattle. But nonetheless, that you have to give a lot of credit to what John Harbaugh has done with this Ravens squad, obviously implementing Lamar Jackson. We all know that's kind of been the huge storyline for Baltimore this season, is throwing in Lamar Jackson, who's now 6-1 as a starter, and very well could have been 7-0 had they not lost in overtime to the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium, 27-24. So this game here is going to be huge because the Ravens get to host, because they did win the AFC North. The Pittsburgh Steelers not even making the playoffs this season. Their defense is key. They blitz a lot. And when they played the Chargers back on December 22nd, they forced 3 total turnovers, 2 interceptions of Phillip Rivers, and then a strip. They stripped Antonio Gates, returned that fumble 67 yards for a touchdown. That was kind of the icing on the cake in that game. So is that Ravens defense going to be able to keep up? And many people are saying the Chargers will come in here, who've done phenomenal this season, 12-4, and they've already faced Lamar Jackson. That's a benefit for them. They faced Lamar Jackson once. They're going to know how to shut him down in this game. Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, isn't that dangerous through the air. He's dangerous to beat you on the leg, the RPO. He's very dangerous on his legs. He can do stuff to the air, but he's only thrown for 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions during his time as starter with the Ravens. He beats you with the unpredictability, the read option. It's very difficult to stop. People are saying the Chargers defense might be able to hone in on that and get a key win here on the road. For the Chargers, though, are they going to be able to be consistent? Phillip Rivers hasn't looked great these past couple of weeks. Didn't look great when they faced against Baltimore there. Is that offensive line going to be able to be strong enough to shut down this very dangerous Ravens pass rush and the defense that I think is the reason for the Ravens being here right now? I don't necessarily think it's their offense. I know they're playing well. Lamar Jackson has done great things, but I think the defense is the leader of this Ravens team. So will Los Angeles be able to come in here and get a win over the Ravens? I do not think they will. And that's very unfortunate, because the Chargers sitting at 12-4 and just being the 5 seed, it's been a phenomenal year for them. I have a lot of respect for Phillip Rivers. I think he's one of the more underrated and underappreciated quarterbacks in the NFL. But going on the road to a very hostile Baltimore Ravens team, one of the better defenses in the NFL, I don't think they're going to be able to get the job done in round 2. And that will send the Ravens to Kansas City once again, because the Patriots will face the Texans. And then the final game of Wild Card Weekend, the Bears and the Eagles. This is one that I think is almost a no-brainer. The Bears should take care of this game fairly easily. I just don't see the Nick Foles magic continuing in this postseason. We all know how it ended last year. The Eagles still got the #1 seed. Foles led them all the way to the Super Bowl and beat the New England Patriots. The Eagles are hot. They've won 5 of their last 6. That included a win on the road against the Rams. That included a home win by 2 points over the Texans. That prevented Houston from getting a first-round bye. So, look, Foles did phenomenal in that game, too, throwing for over 470 yards. So he is very capable. We know he's capable of playing in the postseason. It's not Eagles fans should not be worried about their quarterback situation, but they're going up against the Bears that Matt Nagy has done a phenomenal job turning this program around, getting them to 12-4, boasting the #1 scoring defense in the NFL, holding their opponents to an average of just 10.5 points per game over the final 4 games of the season. They have Khalil Mack on the defensive side of the ball, getting him in a trade right before the season started, and then a star quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky that has taken major steps forward. This, to me, being in Chicago, the Bears should win this game. I wouldn't say handily, but at least by a touchdown, if not more. It's going to be an unfortunate exit for Nick Foles and Doug Peterson and the defending Super Bowl champions. But I do believe that the Bears win this game, which means that the Rams would face the Bears and that the Cowboys would face the Saints. So this is how we see Wild Card Weekend shaping up, and we're now going to go ahead and break down the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. The divisional round is certainly my favorite part of the NFL playoffs. This is the round where you are more likely to see a good handful of upsets because you're introducing your #1 and your #2 seeds coming off that first round bye, and a chance where some of these wild card teams could catch them by surprise. And we're going to start over here with the AFC, the #1 seeded Chiefs going up against the 4th seeded Ravens, assuming they can beat the LA Chargers, which I believe that they will. And this game, obviously a thriller back in the regular season. We addressed it earlier. The Chiefs winning that game 27-24 in overtime, a game that I really don't think they should have won. It was really a back-and-forth game all the way around, but Patrick Mahomes worked some late-game heroics to get the Chiefs a key win that really, in the end, helped them get home field advantage in the AFC side of the bracket in the NFL playoffs. This game, once again, will come down to the late game heroics of Patrick Mahomes, and once again will come down to can the Ravens defense do what they did against Phillip Rivers and maybe try to get some pressure on Mahomes, make him throw some errant throws. Because here's the thing, I keep wanting to call Patrick Mahomes a rookie. It's his second year, but he hardly played last year. He was he only played, I think, in the final game of the season against Denver, in a game that didn't mean anything before they went into the playoffs. But he has been just absolutely unstoppable. One of the most electric offenses in the entire NFL. The Ravens have, in my opinion, one of the better defenses in the NFL, especially along the defensive line and their linebacking core. So can the Ravens defense, for the second time, shut down Patrick Mahomes, force some turnovers, and keep this game close, much like they did in the regular season? Because the Ravens are not afraid to play anybody. They're not afraid of any environment. They have played extremely well in New England before in the playoffs, even beat the Patriots years back in the AFC Championship to get to the Super Bowl. They nearly beat Kansas City, like we mentioned, in Arrowhead Stadium back in the regular season. John Harbaugh is known for doing this type of things in the playoffs. Can he pull off another miracle? Can he pull off another huge upset by pulling off a win here against the Chiefs? I just don't think it's going to happen. The Chiefs will benefit from this first-round bye. Andy Reid, not known for being very good in the NFL playoffs in the postseason, usually known as choking in the playoffs. I don't think that's going to be the case for him this year. This is a very different Chiefs team. This is a very different Andy Reid team. Patrick Mahomes is the real deal. Tyreek Hill is the real deal. Travis Kelce, the real deal. And their defense, certainly very stout and very difficult to go up against as well. But many do believe that the downfall of the Chiefs will be their defense, and I would agree with that. They do have a solid defense, but they're not unstoppable. They have weaknesses that can be exploited, but can the Ravens be the team to do that? Will the Ravens be the team, with a rookie quarterback in Lamar Jackson, be the team to exploit those weaknesses? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Chiefs win this game in a very close one, much like it was in the regular season, and advance to the AFC Championship game. And who will they face? Will it be the Patriots or the Texans? And I'll tell you right now, I believe it will be New England. I believe it will be the Patriots and Tom Brady making another appearance in the AFC Championship game, and here's why. Patriots and Texans have had two classic games the past 2 years. Had a thriller at the beginning of the season this year, and had a thriller early in the season last year. Brady winning that game, once again, some late game heroics against Houston. The Patriots' offensive line has struggled. They've had some very unforced penalties. That's what cost them the game, in my opinion, against the Steelers back on the road there. They had a couple of false starts, had a couple of holding calls. Brady threw a horrible interception there. This has been a Patriots team that just doesn't feel like the normal Bill Belichick team. They're 11-5. They've made tons of costly mistakes. They've lost some games they shouldn't have, like that Miracle in Miami game that they certainly shouldn't have lost. So this just doesn't seem like the normal Patriots team, but you can never go into the playoffs doubting Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, arguably the best of all time, the best coaching and quarterback duo of all time. I think they go into this game against the Texans. They're hungry. They've got a bye week. Belichick doesn't let his teams continue to make mistakes, and you really saw that over the final 2 weeks of the season, getting key divisional wins over the Bills and the Jets. And yes, it's the Bills and the Jets. They're nothing to be scared about. Texans much more difficult than either of those two squads. The key for the Patriots once again will be their defense, a defense that I think has played extremely well and kind of has been overshadowed by some of the struggles they may have had on offense. But that's going to be their defense going up against a very solid Texans offense. And like I said, for the Colts defense, can they shut down DeAndre Hopkins? Can they limit the big plays going into this divisional round matchup? I think the Patriots do get the win here, advance to the AFC Championship game, but unfortunately they will have to go on the road and face the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium for a spot in Super Bowl 53. Moving over here to the NFC side, we've got the Saints and the Cowboys. And as we mentioned earlier, these two teams met back in the regular season, and the Cowboys beat the Saints in Dallas 13-10. Held that high-octane offense of the Saints to just 10 points in Dallas. But to good credit, this is to the Saints, they only held Dallas to 13 points. So it was a very low-scoring game, low-scoring affair, kind of ugly game. But that was one that really showed Dallas that, hey, we're back. Maybe we can make a run to the playoffs. We can beat these teams. We can hang with some of the best teams in the NFL. This game's going to be a little bit different, though, unfortunately, for Dallas. I believe that the Cowboys go into New Orleans and do lose this game. This reminds me a lot, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but go all the way back to about 2009, 2010, the NFL playoffs then. Cowboys win their first playoff game at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. Move on to the divisional round game to face the Minnesota Vikings and Brett Favre, and just got annihilated. I think it was 34-3. That, in my opinion, kind of feels like what's going to happen here for the Cowboys going up against the Saints. They're going up against the #1 seed in the NFC. It's going to be on the road, so anytime you have to go on the road, it's a completely different environment. This will not be the same Saints team in the same environment for Dallas as it was back in the regular season. The Saints, Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, Michael Thomas, and then obviously a very, very stout defense going up against the Cowboys team that I said I've seen growth in Dak Prescott. I know what Ezekiel Elliott's capable of, but even Ezekiel Elliott didn't have a great game back in the regular season. The Saints shut down Dallas in this game, and I think win fairly handily go and make another trip to the NFC Championship game, just one win away from their first Super Bowl since that year that they faced off against Minnesota Vikings and Brett Favre, and obviously beat the Colts in the Super Bowl 44. Moving down to the final divisional round game, Rams and Bears. Another, you go back and look at the NFL. NFL is so much different from college because these teams, do face each other at least maybe once in a season, maybe twice, like the Texans and Colts, because they're in the same division. The Rams and the Bears played back in the regular season, and the Bears beat the Rams 15-6, shut down, like the Cowboys did to the Saints, a very high-octane Rams offense that was putting up tons of points against some of their divisional foes, put up tons of points in one of the best games I've ever seen against the Chiefs. Jared Goff and Todd Gurley, guys like that are so huge for this Rams offense, and Sean McVay, one of the best young head coaches in the league right now, transforming this Rams team. The Bears shut them down, beat them 15-6, but that game was in Chicago. Now the Bears are going to have to fly all the way out to L.A. and face a Rams team that will be rested, will be healthy. Todd Gurley battling injury over the last part of the season, and should be able to get a win here after a very disappointing exit last year in the NFL playoffs, losing at home to the Atlanta Falcons. I think this game goes back and forth because the Bears do boast one of the best defenses in the NFL. We saw that against the Rams. We've seen that over the course of the entire season. But in the end, Sean McVay, he's an offensive genius. He knows what this Rams team is capable of, and this Rams defense is nothing to shy away from. They are very, very dominant. This game, despite having tons of young stars, despite having some very good offenses, could be fairly low scoring, but I think the Rams' home field advantage is going to be key for them. Health is going to be key for them. That break is going to be key for them, and they go to the NFC Championship and face off against the New Orleans Saints. So we're going to have the Chiefs and the Patriots, the Saints and the Rams facing off in the two conference championship games for a spot in Super Bowl 53. So here we are, the two conference championships. The Chiefs, the Patriots, the Saints, and the Rams all fighting for a spot in Super Bowl 53. And yes, I know so far I have picked the number 1 and the number 2 seeds to make it here to the conference championship games. I know I've picked the higher seeds. I know I've picked the teams that have home field advantage. I know in some people's eyes I haven't really picked any upsets. But this is the way I truly see it. I believe going into this NFL postseason that these are the 4 best teams in the NFL as of right now. I believe these guys will get the job done in their divisional round games and make a trip to the AFC and NFC championships. And we're going to start over here with the AFC championship between the Chiefs and the Patriots. And if this game was in New England, I would be picking the Patriots, without a doubt in my mind. However, it's going to be played in Kansas City. It's going to be played at Arrowhead Stadium. The Patriots were a perfect 8-0 at home this season, but on the road, they struggled. They struggled big time, losing to the Jaguars, losing to the Lions, losing to the Titans, losing to Miami, of course, the miracle in Miami, that crazy hook and ladder play, and losing to the Steelers. And many people freaked out when Patriots lost back-to-back games. They lost to the Jaguars and the Lions back-to-back, lost to the Dolphins and the Steelers back-to-back. So I know a lot of people freaked out about this stuff, and yet the Patriots, sitting at 11-5, were still able to clinch a first-round bye and the number 2 seed in the AFC. But this is going to be a very difficult environment. Arrowhead Stadium is one of the toughest places to play in the entire NFL. It is so loud, and the Chiefs have waited so long for their chance to get to a Super Bowl. And they have finally found the coach and finally found the team that they think can get them there. Finally found the quarterback they believe can get them there. If this game is any indication of what happened back early on this season, the Patriots and the Chiefs faced off back in early October. The game was back and forth. Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes going at it, kind of like a passing of the torch. Tom Brady handing it off to Patrick Mahomes, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, passing it to the quarterback of the future. And we will see that here, too, with Jared Goff and the Rams going up against Drew Brees, a young quarterback in Goff going up against a quarterback that's slowly on his way out in Drew Brees, but still arguably one of the greatest of all time. But over here with this Chiefs and Patriots game, can Tom Brady and the offense get enough going and one time, as I can mention, exploit some weaknesses in this Chiefs defense? They have them. They have allowed a lot of points this year. 43 against the Patriots the time they met. 38 against the Seahawks back when they lost that game in Seattle. But once again, home field advantage is going to be huge for this game. I think Patrick Mahomes is able to exploit some weaknesses in this Patriots defense. You never want to doubt Bill Belichick. You never want to doubt Tom Brady. But their road struggles this season have really concerned me, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to come in an environment in a stage like this and get a win over probably one of the most electric and most difficult offenses in the entire NFL. I think the Kansas City Chiefs make a trip to the Super Bowl under Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, just a second-year quarterback. And who will they face off from the NFC, the Saints or the Rams? And this is going to be a very intriguing matchup. As we all know, this is a rematch once again from the regular season. The Saints winning this game in New Orleans 45-35, and I believe that ended any chance of the Rams having an undefeated season. This game, once again, has the chance to be a very high-scoring game. I mean, you look at that. That's 80 combined points the first time these two teams met. Could we be in for another game like that? Could we be in for another potential Chiefs and Rams type game in this matchup here between the Saints and the Rams? And if we're lucky, could we see a Chiefs and Rams rematch in the Super Bowl? I have to say that was one of the best NFL games I'd ever seen in my entire life. That Chiefs and Rams Monday night game. But over here, as I mentioned, older quarterback in Drew Brees, newer quarterback in Jared Goff. Sean McVay, Sean Payton, two brilliant offensive minds. Who's going to win this game? And I'm going to say it's going to be the New Orleans Saints. Home field advantage is once again huge. Being at home, beating a team, playing a team that you've already beaten once when you were at home is going to be huge for the Saints. And I think, once again, kind of like the Chiefs, they just have too much on both sides of the ball. But I will say, on offense, I feel they have a little bit of an edge there. I love the Rams' offense. I love Sean McVay, the way he thinks, the style that he implements, that very kind of air raid offense, using but still implementing Todd Gurley, one of the best running backs in the league right now. The Saints just have too much, though, especially in the pass game. The ability to use Alvin Kamara, the ability to pound it inside the red zone with Mark Ingram, and then one of the best targets in the NFL, Michael Thomas. I think the Saints will be able to get the job done, force a couple key stops on the defensive side of the ball, and that's going to put the Kansas City Chiefs facing off against the New Orleans Saints in Super Bowl 53 in Atlanta. So yes, we have the two #1 seeds from the AFC and the NFC facing off in Super Bowl 43. But honestly, would we expect anything less? These two teams are the #1 seeds in their conferences for a reason. And that reason being that they have, honestly, the most two electric and two best offenses in the entire NFL. And yes, things could change. If the predictions don't go the way we see, maybe the Saints or the Chiefs lose. Maybe, they have to face a more difficult opponent in the divisional round. Maybe these things don't play out. Maybe the Rams get revenge on the Saints. I think the Chiefs do get revenge on the Patriots, assuming they do host, or assuming this is the way things play out and the Patriots have to travel to Kansas City. But this Super Bowl has the opportunity to be one of the most fun Super Bowls we've ever seen due to the just similar styles of offense and two great quarterbacks going at it, and Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees. Once again, still that passing of the torch. Drew Brees going for his second Super Bowl. The Chiefs trying to win their long way to the Super Bowl after such a long way. Andy Reid trying to get a long way to Super Bowl, one of the more underrated coaches in the NFL. And obviously having a history of struggling in the postseason, not being able to manage the clock correctly, choking in big games, not being able to get the plays when they need them, and he's finally found that team to do that. This game, in my opinion, is going to have a little bit of a lack of defense due to the such high-octane offenses. But in the end, which team is going to have the better defense? Which one is going to be the one to step up and make plays? Games like this in the Super Bowl, especially in the postseason, things change. You have to forget everything that happened in the regular season. Sometimes that does play a factor because you've played these teams before, but things do change. Thing with the Chiefs is they don't have that much experience. They do not have the experience in the postseason and in big games like the Saints do. Pat Mahomes is just entering his second year. Obviously had no playoff experience last year. They had an early exit after losing to Tennessee. He didn't even play in that game. Andy Reid has experience coaching in these games, even made a Super Bowl with the Eagles. But like I said, has struggled at times. The Saints, plenty of playoff experience. Drew Brees won a Super Bowl. Sean Payton was with him when they won that Super Bowl. They were in the playoffs last year, should have made the NFC Championship had the Minneapolis Miracle not happened. So the Saints, I think, have the edge when it comes to experience. But which team is going to make the big plays when it matters the most? Which team has the most firepower? And I think the New Orleans Saints will win Super Bowl 53. I think the experience at the quarterback position, and especially on that defense, for the Saints defense, I think they do own a better defense than Kansas City as of right now. And obviously coaching-wise, Sean Payton having been there before, same with Andy Reid, but Sean Payton knowing what it's going to take to get a Super Bowl win over a very difficult Chiefs team. I think New Orleans clinches their their second ever Super Bowl under Drew Brees. And I don't think this will be the end of Drew Brees' terms in New Orleans. It would be a great way to go out. Obviously, one of the most illustrious careers in all of NFL history for a quarterback. But will he ride off into the sunset with a second Super Bowl victory of the Chiefs? I don't think it's going to happen. They love the game too much. But this is going to shape up to be one heck of a Super Bowl if all of our predictions play out correctly. I do believe that the New Orleans Saints win Super Bowl 53 in Atlanta over the Kansas City Chiefs. But I will tell you one thing, Chiefs fans, if this is the way things played out, you guys will be back. Andy Reid and this young Chiefs team has too much talent and too much to continue to build on to not be back here on this stage. And obviously this is a sign of great things to come for Kansas City, and obviously a great opportunity and a great experience for the Saints to possibly clinch their second Super Bowl of the decade. I mean, winning that game, I think, back in 2009, 2010, Super Bowl 44. So this would be huge for them. Almost 10 years have passed since that last Super Bowl win, but I do believe that they clinched their second Super Bowl. This is going to be a very fun playoff, and this thing, you never know what's going to happen. I told you how unpredictable the NFL playoffs can be, how when I looked at the bracket, I said I don't see one team in there that I just think is a clear-cut favorite. All of these games are going to be dogfights, but I think in the end, this is your matchup you're going to get, and I think the Saints do win Super Bowl 53. So make sure you stay tuned for the NFL playoffs. They begin tomorrow, Wild Card Weekend, with two great games. You got the Texans and the Colts. You've got the Cowboys and the Seahawks. Continuing on to Sunday, then the divisional round, then the conference championships, and then Super Bowl on February 3rd down in Atlanta. So it's going to be a great NFL postseason. And make sure you stay tuned as well. We're going to have our national championship prediction for Alabama-Clemson. We certainly didn't forget about college football. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out spread picks for all of these games on Twitter, and for tons of more content here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.